Now, if you could just give me a quick sort of energy scan based on the current energy and momentum of the timeline I am on at this time, if you see any estimate approximately where the COVID situation could start concluding in a preferred way for me.
There are a few different options available to you. One of the major options that we're detecting relates to a period of 6 to 8 to 12 months. So the energy remains rather consistent for this option up until the 6-month mark. Once the energy accelerates to the 6-month mark, different possibilities will then become more available. And these availabilities represent the idea of the COVID situation reaching, let's just say, a bit of a conclusion within the 6-month mark. However, if things change, it may then take place near the 8-month mark. And of course, if things change even further, it's possible that it may take up to 12 months. Now, that's one particular option. And that represents you stabilizing within yourself the idea of these energies that you have inquired about. That particular energy framework and pattern will yield the timeline that we are describing here. And then at either a 6, 8, or 12-month mark, the possibility for your collective reopening will then be more probable, depending on how things go. So remember, it is your familiarity with this loving energy state you're generating now that will enable you to call upon that energy state at those unique points in time. So your collective will then be, once again, exposed to those energies that represent allowance, surrender, and really flowing with your heart. So the energy state you're growing now will be very important during those 3 periods of time, because certain openings, certain gateways will be present at those times.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
All
Is
right.
it also related to some like astronomical event like equinoxes or anything like that?
There is a connection here, yes. What you're going through now is a type of evolutionary process that is macro and microcosmic. So there are stellar zodiacal forces that are reflecting back to all of you these changes. But remember, they're just reflections. That's why there are multiple points in time that operate as potential points of transformation. So the energies will be astrologically supportive in relationship to that particular process for up to about another year. And those 3 dates that we have given, the 6-month mark, 8-month, and 12-month, will again act as doorways to begin to shift into another narrative, into another version of your collective. The energies will be supportive for those particular types of processing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I've got enough confidence. This is also like a nice confirmation for me that how approximately it can take, and if I'm on the right path, which I sense that I am.
Yes. The more you accelerate in your own journey, the more the external situation will also accelerate. The key, again, is to not rush things, because as you have observed with your collective, when the reopening was rushed, further imbalances then ensued, because that was the dynamic that was also taking place within the energy bodies of all of you. Many individuals attempted to rush the process of transformation, and they recognized they weren't 100% ready. So then the idea is another inward calling was then experienced. And that's what you're all going through again now. The imbalances, the hiccups that your species experiences in the reopening process only comes from, again, trying to move energies that aren't quite ready yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And just curious, that I heard that there is going to be a more, what is it called, the eye of the needle, that there is going to be some acceleration in splitting the prisms in December or so?
Yes, yes, this is accurate. Yes, things will accelerate even more. We have described it as this, what you call the dynamic of cause and effect will become much more instantaneously experienced. So for many of you, the idea is you take a particular action, and it's almost as if a certain signal or frequency is emitted from the action. And then at a certain point, a very obvious external reflection is then called forth into your experience that reflects that energy. And this is oftentimes a more physicalized experience. So you have the idea of the initial choosing of the state of being, the first major physical manifestation that is called forth as its reflection, and the idea of time in between. Because your species is raising its frequency, you are, as a side effect, creating less time. Therefore, there is less time in between the idea of your state of being and the first overt physical reflection that is caused by the state. So after that particular date, because there will be a decrease in experiential time, many of you will experience whatever reality trajectories you are on manifesting much more quickly. You'll notice things really picking up because you won't be creating as much time for yourselves to experience. So that will manifest as an acceleration along all of those different timelines that are available to you now. So things might seem very big during that time. It might seem like a lot of changes are taking place, both internally and externally. However, that time period, because it is taking place in winter, right near the new year, is also a period of rebirth. So even though it might look like things are really reaching a building point, behind all of that is the energy of total dissolution and then rebirth into a new reality. Does that make sense?
Yes,
All
yes.
right, all right.
So we will basically be faster manifestors, if I use these words.
Exactly, exactly. And it's all about really becoming as aware of your own energy as you can be. So that way you can experience all of the different ways that you already are manifesting your reality. And you can then begin through your awareness of all those different ways to then guide how you are manifesting to rapidly accelerate into directions that represent more of your holistic preference.
Right, and we do not want to manifest our fears.
Exactly. Yes. And that's why, as you have already described, you're in a process of letting go, of going within, because that inward process, again, connects to that energy of dissolution. So you can use these inward states to break down those fears, to transform those fears, and to really beam love into those areas of the self that perhaps are currently resonating with fear.
So this is interesting. How long approximately is now the delay between the reflection, the intention and the reflection?
It's different for different people. And what we mean by that is some individuals have a temporal minimum, and we'll describe this. There are certain realities individuals can call forth very quickly, almost instantaneously, because of the belief systems they're utilizing. So the temporal requirement for that type of manifestation for some individuals can be seconds. However, other individuals may be holding on to more negative belief systems, denser belief systems, low vibrational belief systems, which as a side effect create more time. So those individuals can experience a temporal maximum in relationship to calling forth certain manifestations. And that maximum will be unique from person to person to person. It depends on how dense the belief systems are that they're utilizing. Some frequencies of belief systems can create temporal maximums that go up to a year, up to 2 years, up to 3 years, depends on really the quality of the beliefs they're using for that particular manifestation. What you will find is, because you're all going through that detox process right now, those negative belief systems, those ideas, those really judgments are what you're all letting go of. That's what they are fundamentally, judgments. You're letting go of those things. And that then decreases the temporal maximum for your collective consciousness. So average manifestations can then take as little as a month, can then take as little as 2 weeks, and for some things, depending on the relevance, seconds. So you're shrinking that temporal maximum across the board. So everyone's manifestations will begin to then appear in a more streamlined way.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, even negative frequencies can be amplified in a high frequency way. And that's why, even though your general frequency as a species is rising, for some individuals, they may see an increase in the proximity of negative manifestations, if that's what they're creating. And it's because this high frequency energy is being imposed upon the entire collective consciousness. So that will amplify whatever processes you're going through, which then furthers the splitting effect. Because what creates the splits is the difference in frequency from one timeline to another to another.
Mm-hmm. So for me specifically, do you know what the maximum is for me?
For some of your manifestations, 4 years.
Oh dear.
That's all right, though. That's all right. Because as you stretch your imagination and you begin to live some of those preferred realities now, that allows for them to become more proximal. Remember, you can only experience the vibrational effects of what you are putting out energetically. Mm-hmm. So as you begin to resonate with your preferred utopian version of Earth, your preferred relationship with yourself and others, because you're living it now, those things become more proximal, and it will shift the temporal requirement for that thing. You'll experience it more proximally. Mm-hmm. So it's all right. It's just a side effect of what you're all going through.
Yes, but do you sense any specific themes that I could address to kind of shorten this kind of the maximum tackle?
By spending a portion of your day really becoming conscious of the preferred realities you desire for yourself, both personally, communally, and globally. Mm-hmm. Really go into the energy states of what those worlds feel like. Really breathe into those visualizations, making them vivid, powerful, and then bring those energies into the self. Tune your body to their frequency. And then simply begin to let go of all insistence, all resistance. Just dissolve. Let yourself mellow out into your inner being. And you'll find through summoning those energies as powerfully as possible and then totally letting go, you will then shift in that letting go in a way that represents moving closer to the realities you have called forth. Because in that total letting go is a total detachment of the frequency of space and time that you're using now, in a way that allows for you to blend more with the frequencies of space and time relevant to the visualizations. So those realities become experientially more proximal. So each day, as you focus on this more and crystallize these things more and really blend these things with your imagination, the more of an acceleration you will experience in that process. Mm-hmm. Of your preferred personal, communal, and global reality.
Yes, and do I understand it correctly that the maximum is just for some aspects it can take up to 4 years, but it's not like everything?
It's not that across the board. Again, it's only a reading referencing certain manifestations that are connected to belief systems of a greater density. You're not using those belief systems for all of your manifestations, only some. May we ask you a question? Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you believe is difficult to manifest?
Difficult to manifest. My physical body.
Well, this is a revelation in relationship to where there are greater temporal requirements. So all you have to do to figure out where you are creating more time is to determine where you are creating difficulty in relationship to manifestation processes. Because that difficulty, again, it comes from a certain belief system that is of a lower frequency, therefore there's a greater time requirement. So this is a way you can begin to go within and say, all right, where am I creating more time? Do I prefer that? Do I wish to accelerate that? Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right.